Number 10 is a card that you would think just off the first word in its name that it would be made so much better than anything else on this list. Well, I mean, it is number 10, but still, Performapal Odd-Eyes Dissolver, despite being a part of two pretty solid archetypes, just can't escape. It has two effects, you know, it being a pendulum monster and all, and I'll go over both of them. The pendulum effect is, once per turn you can fusion summon one dragon fusion monster from your extra deck, it's probably going to be Vortex, using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. So yes, this does have an external effect which makes it a little bit better. I mean, this is kind of just qualifying them on being hand traps themselves, but oh well, this thing can be used for other things at least. But its monster effect is where things get juicy. At the start of the damage step, if your pendulum monster battles an opponent's monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, your monster cannot be destroyed by that battle. You can only use this effect of Performapal Odd-Eyes Dissolver once per turn. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck, using this card you control as a fusion material, as well as other monsters you control or cards in your pendulum zones. And of course, it is a scale 4. So let's just talk about this for a second. The only thing that pertains to it being a hand trap here is that if your pendulum monster specifically, probably doesn't matter since you're playing this in Performapal/Odd-Eyes, it would battle, it is no longer destroyed by battle. You still take the damage, as Arc 5 loves to tell us, and it doesn't do anything to really progress or make you go plus or stop your opponent. These are kind of things that hand traps are known to do. Just look at stuff like Honest. Honest is one of the earliest hand traps, yet it still takes so much attack to pump up your monster, especially back in those days. And Honest just does it for free because you're playing Lights, and by Lights I mean Lightsworn, and by Lightsworn I mean Judgment Dragon is poking for 6k in the mirror. That is just ridiculous. This is not a good battle-related hand trap. Not a good one at all. Number 9 is a card that almost escaped the list just because of how fun it is to say. Achachachanbara is a monster that says during either player's turn when a card or effect is activated that will inflict damage when it resolves, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, inflict 400 damage to your opponent. Now, fun fact, I didn't miss out a phrase or a sentence there. It doesn't negate the damage. It just also deals 400 to your opponent. So your best case scenario here is that both of y'all are at super low life points, like 100, 200, something like that, and they play Ukazi, or just anything that burns at all whatsoever. You proceed to go, Achachachanbara. They go, what, are you having a stroke? And then you summon it, burn them for 400, and you win first, because they can't burn you if they're already dead. It's a very, very optimistic look on this card, and not one that you'll ever really see. Sometimes, instead of creating cards that counter your opponent's plays, Konami would make cards that punish the opponent for punishing you. This almost never works, even with stuff like Witch's Strike having an insanely strong effect, like why aren't we playing this? Oh right, it's not a counter trap. What a good card. A prime example of this card design is Tadakawa Knight, another one that's very fun to say. A level 4 warrior that, if your opponent negates your spell or trap, you can discard to inflict 1500 damage. On one hand, this is actually some pretty decent burn. 1500 is more than what you'll get for Tremendous Fire, which also has to burn you, or Secret Barrel, which requires a big amount of setup, or Secret Blast, which has the same idea. It could win you the game. On the other hand, this is almost never going to go off, and you're so much better off just trying to play around negation, or just stopping the negation, like, called by or something. This is a Prime Yuma card, a card that's strange, almost never good, but they felt compelled to print it anyway. Not really certain about that, but I feel compelled about making this the number 8 spot on the top 10 worst hand traps list. Number 7 is a funny one. It's from an archetype that I'm sure you all will look at and go, oh yeah, that was in Brains or something, and they had one good card. Dino Wrestler Marshall Ankelo, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a monster with the following effect. During damage calculation, if another Dino Wrestler monster you control battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, meaning, yes, it is indeed a hand trap. You can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard. That monster you control cannot be destroyed by that battle. Also, the attack of your opponent's battling monster is halved at the end of the damage step. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there from the field this turn, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Dino Wrestler Marshall Ankelo once per turn. Okay, so A, you still take the damage. B, it doesn't even summon itself. Like, I don't know, Performapal Odd-Eyes Dissolver, the objectively better card here. But also, it proceeds to just kind of, you know, have an opponent's monster. That's something that's tacked onto cards to make them better. Like, Boral Sword would be good if it didn't have that effect. Or, it also gains it, so just keep that in mind. Gale the Whirlwind was pretty alright just because it was a level 3 tuner that spammed itself out. It didn't also need to have the attack and defense of the opponent's monster, but you know, it's a nice to have. We're treating a nice to have as a necessity for some reason, and I just don't appreciate it, so that's number 7 on this list, for a very good litany of reasons. Number 6 is an absolute meme dream, and if you don't feel like it should be on this list, I completely understand, but let's look at it at a pragmatic point of view. If you have no cards on your entire field, or no cards in your hand besides one, what do you want that one card to be? A Raigeki? A Dark Hole? A Harpy's Feather Duster? I know that's banned, but that's for the Japanese in the audience. Well, how about this? This is Goddess of Sweet Revenge, one of the most memey cards I've ever known in my life, and this thing was a promo. Legendary Collection Kaiba. This thing was actually used as a promotional card for you to want to buy the set. I understand, I bought a lot of them. But either way, let's get right into its effect. Well, you control no cards and this is the only card in your hand. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can discard this card. Destroy as many cards as possible your opponent controls, then you can special summon one monster from your deck. Well, I mean, that looks pretty good on paper. You know, it's just a complete field nuke of the opponent's side. Doesn't matter on your side, so really it's just Final Destiny without having to discard 5 cards. And then you still have advantage by summoning a monster from your deck, and that monster could be something that gets another monster or searches something or helps your deck actually do deck things. But also, if you are at any point in this game where it is the opponent's turn, you have nothing but one card in your hand, and this is literally the best card you can have in that circumstance, you are still not winning this game. Because, just negate it. I know you can just negate basically everything, but this is so susceptible, and also you need to be on such a losing position you don't have counterplay. The entire idea of this card is just as a complete turnaround 180 whoosh to try to get the opponent to actually lose the game. But still, if you're in such a badly losing position anyway, you would just need this to say win the game to actually have a shot at it. So, the card's bad, but it's fun as hell, run 3 and everything. For as inconsistent in quality as the different series of Yu-Gi-Oh can be, you could interpret this however you like. Something that is consistent is that every pro tag gets their own Kuriboh, anime or not. However, something that never happens is the rival getting their own Kuriboh, especially one that's part of their archetype. Photon is the weird one of the bunch that actually happened for some reason. I don't understand it either, but we're going along with it. Photon can be discarded, while also you paying 2,000 life points, so we're comparing this to Solemn Warning for reference, to prevent all damage this turn, and you can recur it by discarding a Photon monster. If you're paying 2,000 life points, you'd have better be staring down an OTK in order for this to be a sound idea, at all in any way, shape, or form. Even if we ignore the existence of Called by the Grave, this effect is just not worth the cost, especially since Photons blow their whole hand away on the first turn anyway, and do you really want the 6th card in your hand, or sometimes the 5th card when you're going first, to be, yes, in case all goes wrong, I can extend one more turn and still have nothing. An honorable mention for this spot is Junk Kuriboh, which can be discarded to negate a burn card and destroy that card. This card is just completely outclassed by other cards like Hanawata, which is flat out just known for stopping all effect damage for the entire turn instead of one instance. And honestly, if you're getting burned for game, you might get burned for game again. Trust me, have you ever gone against Chain Burn, Nurse Burn, any sort of burn deck, any deck that does burn at all? They have more than one card that burns. That's kind of the entire point of the deck. Hell, Clear Kuriboh also does the job better if its monsters are doing the burning, since it lets you draw a card afterwards. This pair shows the worst that Kuribohs have to offer. And yes, you're not seeing the original Kuriboh on here. It just straight up does things better than everything on this list, and it came out in Metal Raiders. God, why? Number 4 is a card that everyone wants to be good, but no, no, no. Engraver of the Mark is a card that says, during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect by declaring exactly one card name, so you're thinking Mind Crush or Prohibition, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. Declare one other card name. The card name your opponent declared becomes the card name declared by this effect. Once per turn during either player's turn, you can target one face-up card on the field, destroy it during the end phase of the next turn. First of all, its straight-up monster effect is some shit from Legacy of the Valiant that was posted as a joke, like Dark Artist, or the Legendary Swordsman from the East. You know the card I'm talking about, the thing that's like, oh yeah, just kill it after 5 turns, it's basically Warrior Zone Eater. That's just... Really? Really? You think that it's happening during the end phase of the next turn? You're dead. You are actually dead. But its hand trap effect is what actually puts it on the list. You're not going up against Mind Crush. That's just not happening. This counters like 3 cards that you can name off the top of your head, and one of them is Artifact Durandal. I mean, if you said Dark Deal, bonus points, I guess, and I'm sure there are a few others, but none of them have seen competitive play in a while. Prohibition is probably the best example of this. It is a continuous spell that just says, declare a card name your opponent can't use a part of their deck. And that still doesn't see play. It's just unlimited. I don't understand why we are in a game where that's okay. But whatever, it's okay. You don't have to play Millennium Eyes Restrict as a continuous spell for only 1 hand trap. Whatever, Yu-Gi-Oh community, that's fine. But Engraver of the Mark, even if Prohibition was a 3-of staple like God intends, Engraver of the Mark still deserves a spot at number 4 on the top 10 worst hand traps list. Hey, so, for the bronze medal here, did you know that Blackwings have more than 1 hand trap? That's right, it's not just Colute. You know, Colute, that card that's stupid, that card that's just honest but for Blackwings and they desperately did not need it? Well, funny you should say that, because there are 4 other Blackwing hand traps and all of them are terrible. The first one being Damascus. During the player's turn, you can discard this card to target a Blackwing monster you control. It gains 500 attack until the end phase. This should not even be worth discussing. It has 1/3 the qualities of Colute. Like, just mathematically, this doesn't make sense. Even if you're maxing out on Colute, which you don't anymore, and even if you were playing 2009 Blackwings, you wouldn't be playing Damascus. You just say, oh yeah, you can just search off Black Rowan, it's fine. No, you don't care to do that. Then we have Ghibli. When your opponent declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. Once per turn, you can switch the original attack and defense of this card until the end of this turn. Okay, so it has a little bit of a butt, and then you make it a little bit of a stick. That's about it. It doesn't even negate the attack, I just want to mention. So you just summon it in defense mode, and it's as if it's Battle Fader that just forgot to function. I don't get the idea here. It's not even that it doesn't negate the battle phase. Like, you know, whatever. It's a Blackwing. It could probably get away with negating the attack. I mean, honestly, I'd like it to negate the entire battle phase, because why not? You have Speedroid Menkoto to actually help you along with this, and prove that this is a thing that you can do, but Ghibli just doesn't want to do anything. It just sits there, dies, and then goes squawk. Etesian. If a Blackwing monster you control battles an opponent's monster, and your opponent still controls that monster at the end of the damage step, which is to say, if you fucked up, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard and inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. Just play Tremendous Fire at that point. Why do all these hand traps have to do with burning? Oh, it's because we can make the life points really low in the anime, and that's cool, and it's all happy. Makes it really close and nail-biting. You don't care to run this. And lastly, Brizote. If 2 or more face-up Blackwing monsters you control were destroyed this turn, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, gain 600 life points. Now, you notice how I didn't say quick effect? Because I didn't. I didn't at all. Because you can only use this to summon itself on your turn! At this point, it blurs the line between hand trap and effect, but also it's supposed to, like, play around, like directly into things like Torrential Tribute, and it'll be able to summon itself. Okay, whatever. you got rid of 2 Blackwings and you get a worse Blackwing. Cool, gain 600 life points. It doesn't matter. If 2 or more face-up Blackwing monsters you control were destroyed this turn, that means you lost. Blackwings are not a top deck, unless you already for some reason have 3 Black Whirlwinds out. This card is not good. And also, it doesn't even work with Black Whirlwind, because it's not a level 4 or below. It's just a dumb big bird that doesn't help you, and doesn't help Blackwings at all. Number 2 is Ogre of the Scarlet Sorrow. I'm not gonna lie, that name is fucking metal. But its effect certainly isn't. It's more like wood, like, you know, like the wood that gets like locusts in it, and termites. All of those little bugs just gnawing and nibbling around until you can like just bash with your head and then it just explodes into dust. Well, it's that kind. During your opponent's turn, when your opponent declares a second direct attack during the same battle phase,
good luck.
You can special summon this card from your hand. When you do, this card's attack and defense becomes equal to the attack and defense of the first monster that attacked directly this turn, if it is still face up on the field. I don't know why it has this qualification, as if the card would forget. The turn this card is special summoned with this effect, your opponent cannot select monsters other than this card as an attack target while this card is face up on the field. So first of all, second direct attack during the same battle phase, pretty ridiculously specific as it stands. But also it gains attack and defense equal to the first monster that attacked directly this turn. You know what's a good comparison? A good hand trap that was a staple for a very long time and stayed on the ban list for a long time after. Gore's the Emissary of Darkness. This card just summons a 2700 attack beat stick. And also, funnily little thing, it summons a token that's basically Ogre of the Scarlet Sorrow anyway, and that's just off a direct attack while you don't control cards, which was pretty not rare back in those days of 2009, 2010, 2011. You were fine for just having a clear board at that point, because your opponent probably used a lot to get rid of it. And so, just the fact that Gore's exists makes this card not only look worse by comparison, but worse in general. Because if you have 0 cards on field, your opponent's going to attack in Gore's order. They're going to attack with the smallest monster first. So then, with the second one, it's going to be the second smallest. Ogre gets summoned, gains the stats of the smallest one. Third monster attacks, Ogre's dead. That's just how that works. People know to play around Gores. Even to this day, 10 years after this card was ever relevant, you still see people attacking Gore's order just out of habit. Like, you have people who set in main phase 2 because of the hands. Ogre of the Scarlet Sorrow certainly deserves the silver medal on the top 10 worst hand traps list. By a large margin. But also, we have number 1. Number 1 is Master Craftsman Gamel. During the damage step, when a face-up monster you control battles, quick effect, send this card from hand to the graveyard, that monster gains 300 attack until the end of this turn. That's it. That's the entire effect. It gains 300 attack. We were giving Damascus shit for gaining 500. Oh no, but Jada, that's for Blackwings, and it's only 500, so it's archetype specific. Yeah, but it's an archetype that adds a bunch of things to the hand. Damascus is basically what Kalut would be if Kalut was just literally worse numerically. Master Craftsman Gamel is just a dude. He's not an archetype. He doesn't do anything to help any deck in particular. And also, 300 attack is significantly less than 500 attack. For reference, this doesn't make a Celtic Guardian beat over a Gemini Elf. This doesn't help a Dark Magician beat over a Blue Eyes White Dragon. All of these things where it's like, oh yeah, they're close enough in attack. Now, Gamel can't even make up that small solitary difference to actually beat over something. This is for a mirror match where you somehow have the same field, but you have Gamel, and beating your opponent's monster in battle is the most important part of this mirror match for some reason, and I don't understand how that could be.